live from NYC, and I'm your host, Justin Jacobson. This week we will be discussing wealth management and esports. Just as a disclaimer, nothing here is intended as legal advice, as all of the information is for educational purposes only. This week's guest is Aron Lenkowsky. He's a director of business development at AltFest Personal Wealth Management. AltFest is a wealth advisory management firm with over 35 years of experience. They are recognized as an industry leader and pioneer by Forbes, Barron's, and the Financial Times for the unique process that they use with their clients. Aron works with professional gamers and other high network individuals to assist them in properly managing their money. Aron, thank you for joining us.
Justin, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on the podcast, on the video.
Thank you.
All right.
So to briefly introduce the topic, the need for proper wealth management in esports grows by the day. This is especially true with the growing prize pools and with player salaries growing. For instance, the Dota 2 International has this ever-escalating prize pool of 25 million, 28 million, 30 million, split between 5 players. Then you have things like the Fortnite World Cup that had over $15 million in prizes, the League of Legends World Championship that had over $5 million in prizes, and then many other tournaments with $1 million or more, and some with 6 figures. So that combined with the new franchises and the growing salaries there, whether it's an Overwatch League player getting 150K a year, or some of these League of Legends and Call of Duty players reportedly earning 200 to 300K a year. So these facts have really led to many gamers becoming multimillionaires. In fact, esportsearnings.com currently lists over 75 players having earned over $1 million in total prize pools. Now, clearly, this is becoming a huge thing. You have these players at a pretty young age earning substantial sums of money, and most of the time all at once. So that kind of leads us to our guest this week and kind of learning a little bit more about proper money management. So Aron, tell us a little bit about what AltFest is currently working on in esports.
Sure. So a little background on our organization. As you said, we're about 35 years old. Been in wealth management that long. We operate, and maybe we'll get into this in another time and place, but we operate more like a multifamily office than just a wealth management firm. So maybe a little later we'll talk about other aspects of finance that most advisors would consider to be secondary or tertiary. But a partner of mine who was stationed over in various spots and cities in Asia, he became enthralled. I mean, he's a gamer, he's a sports guy, but he got very good at the Dota game.
Okay.
And was internationally ranked, in the 90th plus percentile.
So he got into the scene and succeeded.
Yeah. He started scrimming against, players that were, somewhat known. And, outside of sports and esports, his other passion is finance. And we started talking to these guys who, over the last couple of years, started making some serious money. Mm-hmm. And AltFest has a division within the company that focuses exclusively on esports, and it's become one of my verticals that I concentrate on a pretty regular basis. So we have, I'd say, at least a couple of handful, if not more, 10 to 15 clients in the esports world. Dota is a very big part of our world, and we,
for obvious reasons, they're securing those huge prize pools.
Yes, I was in Shanghai at TI this summer. Had a great time. Was really rooting on some of our existing clients. I was at the MDL in Paris this year, and getting to know a lot of people in that space. And loving every minute of it. We're actually AltFest's Esports division is actually going to start working with the Overwatch League as well as the Call of Duty League, and hopefully more to come on that in future chats with you. But we're working on that and really excited about doing that. So what we concentrate on at first is really we look to educate the industry. These kids, as young as teens, 17, 18 years old, making six figures. How do you properly vet a financial advisor? Why is financial advisory important? That's the first lesson. And as we get deeper into educating players individually and teams, we teach them really how to kind of think for themselves and ask the appropriate questions on how to vet a financial advisor, somebody who claims to be a money manager. Uh, Even though I would love to do business with everybody I run into, I know that's not going to be possible. It's relationship driven. Sometimes there are others out there that have better relationships with these players than I do. But I do want to make sure that they get educated so that they're not taken advantage of. Because as you know, in your business, entertainment, the first person that comes to mind is MC Hammer, right? I mean, I might be dating myself at this point, but MC Hammer.
I mean, a few of our viewers may know him, but
maybe. But guy made a ton of money, right?
yeah,
And had a big posse. Ran around, blew a lot of money, didn't have proper advice, and he was poor for a long time. I think he's kind of come through the other end, based on the last 10 years and his catalog or what have you.
yeah, licensing and commercials and stuff.
Right. But he was, and when his money left, so did everybody around him. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what I'm looking to hope. I'm hoping that these kids will avoid that, because the time frame with which they have to make this money is going to be pretty finite, as you know.
Yeah, kind of building off that a little, I know that ESPN had a documentary, Broke, that went into a bunch of NBA and NFL players who, like Antoine Walker, who had earned $140 million in his career and ended up broke, and just really a bunch of these other stories where these people have earned $50 to $100 million, and 5-10 years later, there's not the pot to piss in. And to elaborate a little bit on selection of professionals that you were mentioning earlier, I think it's important. And when people ask me, how do I find an attorney? How do I know who's good? I think that, like you said, you have to talk to them. You have to get a feeling about them. You got to do your own research, and you have to feel comfortable with them, knowing that they have your best interest at heart, that they're going to act as a fiduciary and make sure that you understand what's going on. Part of that is on the player or the gamer or the talent to ask the right questions, to care enough about what's going on, to be like, okay, well, why are you doing that? Or do you think that's the best way? Or, you just need to help sometimes keep the professional accountable. And I think that that's kind of part of the vetting process. And, sometimes if you're a player, especially if you're a little younger, you may come into a big office and, you may feel a little intimidated, but you need to kind of realize and understand that this is a team, an attorney, a manager, a CPA, an accountant, all these people are on your team to help you succeed and have your best interest at heart. And, that's just not something that's gained just from meeting someone the first time. You need to talk to them, feel them out, research them, ask what other people think of them, see who else they're working with. Some of the stuff you were mentioning, it's very impressive that you're going out to these different activations. You're going across the country, across the world to seek out the right people, to explain to them, hey, I'm here, this is who I am, and I'm here to help. Maybe right now you don't know why you need my help, but one of these days you're going to, and, I'm here.
Yes.
So
you mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to, you mentioned the word fiduciary, which, in converse, a lot of people don't know what that is. And there's a big difference. There's really two players in the financial industry, and I actually start a conversation with a lot of gamers with, there's a fee only advisor, which is what AltFest is. We charge a flat fee, transparent fee to.
It's like, this is the cost to do X. It doesn't
Yeah,
change based on how much you do or how much work we do. This is the fee.
right. And we're in business to give advice, give the most objective advice.
Because it doesn't matter how well, if you make $1 million or if you lose $1 million, you're still getting the same.
True, yes. But I take it, whether you're in esports or you're a doctor or a lawyer or you're manufacturing widgets, what are your goals? What are you looking to do over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What's retirement look like, depending on where you are in in your professional career? What are your goals? And I got to give you the most objective advice on how to meet your goals. We don't sell any products. We don't sell insurance, annuities, or So that's what a fee-only fiduciary will do. And that's a very small part of the industry. Much bigger part of the industry, the Morgan Stanleys, the Merrill Lynches, the Alliance Bernsteins of the world. They are based, right? Meaning they will charge a fee to manage money, which I do. Fee-based is not fee-only, meaning they can also sell products that are attached to very large commission structures.
So there's incentivized to try to go that route.
Well, that's where the advisor and the client and the goals might not be in line, right? The advisor is incentivized through commission to sell products and services. So you have to be very careful. That's part of why I want the business, the difference between the two. And for instance, in esports or any sports, needs to have a certain amount of disability insurance, right? And what type of disability is appropriate for you? What levels of disability are appropriate? In the esports,
even knowing that something like that exists is important. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are like, what do you mean disability? Like, yeah, if you injure your wrist playing a game, if if you're an NFL player and you blow out your knee,
around with your brother in the outside in the backyard during your time,
yeah, you slip on the way to the pool,
bust up this finger.
Yeah,
what are you gonna do? You can't do this for 4 to 6 weeks, or when you finally start doing it again, it doesn't feel right. You need physical therapy. Those things need to be thought about, very thoughtfully. And there are certain places to go get that insurance, and the prices to pay, and there's other prices not to. So those things you have to vet with these clients.
Okay. So, what are some challenges you've been facing while working within the esports industry?
Yes, as in any industry, I'm sure you're aware of many of them, share a lot of the same challenges. I think probably the two biggest challenges, especially with gamers, is that what I'm finding is it's big reward, go big or go home, right? A lot of gamers are in cryptocurrency. They've invested in that space.
Like before you or with you?
Very well at times. Well, no, that's not something. That's not something I get involved in, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, me either. I don't really stay away from Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I like real currency.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a great discussion. There are pros and cons for sure, but it's okay to take a small amount of money, and if it's an interest to you, that's great. But taking everything that you're worth and putting it into one idea is not a smart move. Diversification through strategies, through different investment vehicles. But they feel as if I gotta swim, to use a baseball vernacular, I guess.
Yeah, like it's like boiler room. It's like I gotta put 100,000 down.
It's a misconception. You need a steady amount of. You need a steady return, consistent on average over years of time, and that's going to get you to where you're going. I mean, in esports, it's not like a doctor or a lawyer where they're going to have a 20, 30, however many year career.
50.
You know, in esports, we have to dial it down, maybe of top earning potential. So we kind of scale it, you know, we squeeze it, but it's still a consistent. It's what you're going to do after, you know, your career. Are you on Twitch? Or are you promoting yourself in other places? Do you have endorsement deals? Those things come into play. But let's get back to the go big or go, you know, consistent, you know, earnings and returns. I'm going to give you, I jotted down a couple of notes before we started. Take somebody who's age 25. You gave me, call it $1,600, $1,700, all right, every month.
Which is how much a year?
Foreseeable fee. Call it a year, all right? And we can take that and shelter it from taxes. You wouldn't pay taxes on that $19,000 that you earned, and you gave an account that I would set up. Really, have over many years. Let's go out to age 6. Say you do that until age 65, and all you
so 40 years you're putting in $19,000 a year.
Right. So let's for inflation is the between 6 conservative, all fixed income bonds, something very, very conservative. But taking that $19,000 and going all the way out till age 65, I'm gonna give you $2 million. It's not difficult. I mean, and those are very conservative figures. Not a lot of money invested.
Not a lot of risk.
But it's not any risk. Not really too much risk. Conservative bond portfolio will return you with those facts and figures. I mean, so those are two ends of the spectrum. The high volatility of cryptocurrency, and you got the very low risk.
The white bread approach.
Bond market. But I'm just giving you the two extremes. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be on the high end extreme to make money in finance. You just need to have you need to have a plan, and you need to have a plan that's thoughtful and based on what your goals are. So that's one challenge. I think the other challenge is that I think a lot of these kids, however educated they are or are not, many of them are not, college educated.
They're not financial literate.
Well, yeah. I mean, you think about how many people go on to college and study finance and graduate from college with a finance degree. Very few. But, you have these kids that are thrown into a situation where they have a lot of money, some, well into the 6 and even 7 figures. Mm-hmm. And they think, hey, I talked to them for the first time. Hey, I'm a financial advisor. Maybe you want to talk about your future. And they look back at me and they're like, I got 7 figures in my check, I got cash. I'm set. Well, it's not the case.
If anything, you have a lot more to worry about now with all the money.
Well, you got to teach them about inflation. Just having that cash sit in a checking account for years and years. You're actually losing 3% a year. No, they can't really understand that concept. And I don't need them to understand it. I just need them to understand that, you can do better than just sitting in cash. That's a tough one. These guys and gals will leave their financial decisions to who they've always left their financial decisions to, which is their parent. Mm-hmm. And I mean, their parents. They only want to do the right thing for their kids. I understand, but oftentimes they're not even equipped to handle the
Mm-hmm.
challenges.
Yeah.
Uh,
What do
I
they
have a
really know
client.
about these things?
Yeah, I have a client who's born and raised in Denmark. He's employed by a company here in the U.S. Right, but keeping his Denmark citizenship,
Mm-hmm.
and making money in China and all across Europe and Russia. Uh, it's great to have $3-4 million in the bank when you owe three different governments that some of that money and the
Yeah.
tax implications there. It's not cross-border tax implications is not something that the average mom and dad know about. It's not even something that the average CPA knows about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to these accountants in Virginia. Like, I don't think they could even get into that level of, like, he's a Danish citizen who made this money in Shanghai, made this money in this country, and players couldn't even think about this. I mean, I'm sure they see all the tax issues that Lauren Hills and Wesley Snipes and just all of these things of them not paying their IRS bill, and it's, you're getting this large sum of money for winning a tournament or a salary. You don't realize that you have to put aside a certain percentage for taxes, that you have to do, if you're an American citizen, federal and state taxes and, city, and depends on where you live. So it's
Sure.
all of these things that wouldn't normally be known. And if you don't have people around you to bring this to your attention or even mention that this exists, you're just not going to know. I had a player that I was talking to that he was getting all his paychecks in his checking account, and then he went to his bank and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in your checking account. If someone got your PIN or whatever, it's over. Like, you should have a savings account." Like, it's just like, and it's just like his parents are not from here, so they're probably just doing whatever they're doing, and he just needed someone to tell him, open a savings account. So at least you're making something on these checks that you're getting. Like, instead of just having it all in this checking account, like you said, earning no money, actually losing money because of inflation, and being exposed to, if your shit's connected to Venmo or Cash App or PayPal, like, that's a great hacker's target. And if you have six figures in there, it'll be a real headache and a really upset conversation to try to figure that out. Especially if it's through some Russian hackers and the money disappears really quickly.
Luckily, that is something that I have not dealt with any of my clients. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like the fact that you're even in the position because you don't understand that, okay, well, there's things I can do with my money that will protect it a little bit more, or as you say, earn interest and income on it, that you just really need to know this exists.
Yeah. Well, that's, you bring up an interesting point. I didn't even think of the cybersecurity aspect of having all that cash in one place. But it's totally true.
Especially because these things are so on the internet, and then if you had the cryptocurrency, like, it's just a lot of high tech financial transactions. And like, yeah, like my bank account probably doesn't have as much as their active bank accounts have. So it's like you have to just be really smart and know that these are things that could happen, and that there are ways to protect yourself and position yourself and treat yourself right.
You bring up some interesting points, and it's also my job to provide that advice. Clients of mine don't have, we represent some of the talent in these leagues, not necessarily the players, but some of the casters,
the announcers and such.
Yeah, exactly. Many of them don't have legal representation because a line that is
Well, yeah, I mean, my last couple of years in esports has been, educating talent and players and really everyone that, like, most of these big teams and companies, they have big law firms or big lawyers who are making these documents. And you're at a huge disadvantage if you're reading a 20, 25-page document and you really don't know what it says and you really don't understand the long-term implications, and you're just too scared or too cheap or too whatever it is to ask for help or to acknowledge that you don't know something and that there are people that can help you better.
Right. Well, I mean, my grandmother would say, "Penny wise, pound foolish," right?
right? I mean, that's what I encounter a lot. But
Yeah,
as people have asked me that question, it's like someone's gonna have to, that's really important, get really screwed out of a lot of money for everyone to realize, like, oh, whoa, if I had the proper tax stuff, like that kid made $3 million but lost half of it because he had to pay this really high U.S. tax rate. And like, if you had no idea that there were certain things you can do to recover some of it, mitigate it, recoup expenses, etc., you put yourself in a really bad position.
right.
And I kind of corollary to with the entertainment and the contract stuff. It's like, yeah, you're gonna have some player that gets into a contract that's really bad, really one sided, and ironclad, and just really disrupts their future earning potential, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And that will
Right.
be the lesson that everyone will be like, oh, whoa, well, if this person can get jammed up or screwed out of this, what'll happen to me?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, that's another part of my job and what we do is, yes, for 36 years this firm has been in wealth management and retirement planning, but as we've grown and learned that every area of finance is connected. For instance, your insurance, most people's insurance broker is never going to speak to their lawyer. A lawyer's never going to talk to the CPA. A CPA is never going to talk to
Unless
the
there's an issue.
financial advisor. Well, even so,
Hmm.
I mean, unless there's a personal connection and it's not just transactional, then maybe you'll get those. You'll get the client and the two needed parties involved. But most times it doesn't happen. But we have CPAs on staff that can talk intelligently to our clients' representation. We have attorneys that will look at documents. I mean, it's mostly estate work that we've done. Not necessarily the work, but we have lawyers with that background and a little bit of corporate understanding. But we don't actually write the contracts. We don't file the tax returns, but we
Hmm.
know enough in house to say, you need this kind of an attorney. You need uh, uh, you need an entertainment lawyer. You need an entertainment focused CPA, and we can recommend one to you if you don't have one. But these kids need somebody who's going to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and tell them, hey, you need A, B, and C. So that like any client, they don't have to worry about it. They go out and do what they want to do.
Hmm.
They'll I mean, we
Right.
have, like I said, clients from all kinds of backgrounds want to focus on their job and what they do for a living, and they leave all that connective tissue and putting things together for us. So to get a teenager or a young 20-year-old to wrap their
A
brain around
young adult, we call them, I guess.
what's that?
They're young adults, I guess, right? Those 20 somethings.
The 20 somethings, definitely young adults, and the young adults I'm finding, they know that they don't know,
Well,
right?
that's good. That's the first step.
The that's yeah. But when you're in your early 20s or late teens, I've heard some crazy things come out of the mouths of people, or even secondhand from these players. They're asked. I'm sitting at dinner with one of them who isn't my client. I wouldn't mention my by name, but a very high earner. What are you going to do after you're done in esports? Well, I'm going to open up a business. Okay, well, what kind of business are you going to go in?
I'll
I'm
figure it out.
going to go into whatever. I'm going to hire somebody to do all that for me.
Hmm.
Was the end of the conversation. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to hire somebody to do it. Who
Like,
are you
that's
going
a
to
great
hire?
plan.
Who are you going to hire to create a business and run it for you? Who's going to care about your money more than you? Or you got to have you got to have more than that. So we got to really iron those things out with these kids and get them thinking about, okay, in 10 years time, give me some ideas. Let's start working towards it now. Let's
Hmm.
sussing it out now so that we can have a real game plan in another 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, I mean,
You
it's
know?
kind of the example that some professional athletes, NFL players, for instance, like, Greg Olson on his bye weeks has started to do like Fox, casting. And this is how they're transitioning to almost audition for life after football to be a caster like Roma or some of these former players. And, it's interesting to see what players. I just saw a tweet from a team owner that's like, if you're a former pro, you should try to go into the industry because, the valuable information that you have from firsthand doing it is hard to replace. It's invaluable. And being able to then bring that practical knowledge with maybe some book knowledge, whether it's, obtaining a law degree to understand the IP and the trademark stuff, or some kind of business or CPA to be able to be like, yeah, I was a former gamer, but now I'm a CPA and I'm advising gamers because I know exactly what you're going through. And,
Right.
I think it kind of plays to what you were talking about with your partner who, played with some of these Dota 2 players. It's building that familiarity. They kind of know what you're talking about, what you're going through, and it makes it easier to connect. So to kind of sum all this up, so why is it important to have, proper financial advice or an advisor or someone in your corner making sure you handle your money right?
I guess to bring it all together, you can spend a lot of money making mistakes. There's the bigger, the more complex the financial world of these entertainers, is another way to. There are sports entertainers, the esports
They're
guys,
talent influencers, all these buzzwords,
and their lives are financially complex. And you can spend a ton of money sticking your head in the sand and avoiding the complexities, or you can have somebody that's has your best interests in mind and can really become the CFO of your world. So that you can go off and do what you need to do, what you want to do with your life. It's really that simple. So, I mean, it's very typical for a season to go by, and 12 months later, kids have a lot of money in the bank, and then all of a sudden, it's 2/3 or it's a third of what it was because they owe this country, that country, and the other taxes.
And they didn't plan for it, and it's a shock to them.
And they're like, oh, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be on the rules of the rules of the road. Just like you're educated on how to play your game, you got to be educated in finance, or you have to have somebody who's got the skills to play this game. Is really what it comes down to. So, and it's about the future. It's you're having a great time now. Most of these kids, youth is wasted on the young. They think that this is gonna, be high and mighty times for years to come. But
aren't that many 40-year-old Dota 2 players?
Well, Tom Brady's gonna retire eventually, right?
Yeah.
I mean, God bless him. He still looks great, and that's tough for me to say because I'm a Giant fan. Things
Me
don't
too.
look great
We don't
for me
have to
right
talk.
now,
We don't have to use that name on this show. But yeah, so I mean, I just kind of want to bring it all together a little bit off what you say is, like a basketball player just wants to shoot the ball. He doesn't want to have to worry about the finances and taxes and making sure that he has the proper insurance. And it kind of comes down to having the right people in your corner and understanding that, yeah, maybe you have to spend some money now, but as you highlighted, the mistakes and the potential ramifications of not doing things properly could end up being way more costly, and it just doesn't pay. So, I just want to thank you so much for joining us, Aaron. This was very, very insightful. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, JustinJESQ. Follow Prediction Esports on Twitch and Twitter. And check all of our past episodes on Apple Podcasts. Thanks and have a great night.